First and foremost, I'm not God. I'm not Warren Buffett. I don't make the markets. I'm not a prophet. I'm just a kid who's very good at pattern recognition. Um, and pattern of the day is going to relate to this stock. So this thing is up 3,000% over, and it just won't stop going. Here's every entry I had, or saw, or entry I think you could have taken without trying to be biased in hindsight. Newegg. So Newegg came out of this massive downtrend, had a bit of a pivot here, set up below the 200. I didn't trade this, wasn't really tradable, but here I did. My breakout was here. I can go back a little bit here. Once it sets up over the 200, I think it's going to be a lot stronger. It's kind of out of that resistance area of underneath the 200. And if my TC unfreezes, there we go. At this point, it's gone, a couple months, a couple 100%, and this gives me enough conviction that it's ready to make a move upward. That being said, my guess would be Newegg is relatively close to done with its run, but at the same time, I said that here, and I said that here, and I said that here, and I probably thought it in the back of my head here. I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that something that sells computer parts could do this. I've been trading quantum stocks, I've been trading AI stocks, I've been trading industrial stocks, I've been trading all the hot themes, things like SMR, who went on runs like this, QBTS, who did this. IONQ had a couple good runs as well up here and here as well. These are the big names that have kind of held my focus for the past year or so, maybe less, I'm not sure at the time. And so when this kind of started to gain the traction that it did, I took it on 25% or 0.25% risk, a quarter of a percent of my account. And I did that all throughout here. And now it's at this point where this thing is up once again, I mean, almost 4,000% from the bottom. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, why didn't I put more money into this? Because I didn't think it was going to keep going. And my goal with this is to not make the same mistake again. So on to the star of the show here, Open Door. Let me grab my note sheet here. Here's my kind of rundown for the video here. Sector cycle for semis and home builders is going to be the first thing I'm talking about. Now that I've had some time to kind of reflect on this, NEGG, for those of you who don't know Newegg, it's a computer parts store. It's like Micro Center. You can buy graphics cards, you can buy computer cases, you can buy semiconductors, CPUs, that type of thing. Um, the reason that, and once again, this could be just completely out of my ass. This could be reaching. I don't know, and quite frankly, don't really care. I'm going to say what I think regardless. And if I get proven wrong, so be it, and I'll learn. And if I'm right, I will troll everyone who doubted me. Here's what I see with Newegg, and here's what I see with Open Door. Newegg started its run mid-May, early June, and then here in June, it really started to pick up. And I would say this, like, hindsight, once again, you could have bought this, but this isn't something I would have bought. This isn't strong. Once again, now that it's over the 200 and does this, this is now another 100% move. Now it goes on my radar, and I did buy this here at break of previous day's high. Held it through here, added a bit there, added some there, and so on and so forth. And I'm still in this. This does look like it's setting up for a short in the next few days, potentially tomorrow. So I am looking to dump my position potentially tomorrow, because once again, despite being proven wrong multiple times, I still really don't think this thing is supposed to be going up forever. This kind of looks like it's cheating a little bit. Not quite sure how or why it's doing this, but this is kind of my best guess. Semiconductors picked up after this really big drawdown. If you're looking at big names like Nvidia and AMD, which are going to be kind of your larger cap leaders of something like semiconductors, they're pretty vertical. They're pretty straight up. You also have some of your smaller cap ones. Obviously, $32 billion isn't a small cap, but when you throw it next to Nvidia, which is over 4 trillion, maybe that comparison makes a little bit more sense. I'm in this one right now, ALAB, another semiconductor stock, very strong recently. Another one that I was looking to trade was MPWR. Once again, It's just trading very cleanly. It came out of this large base after the pullback from March, set up very nicely. And I really do think semiconductors will go higher. I don't think NVIDIA or AMD or any of these large names or the theme as a whole is quite done. I just think they need a longer consolidation. I bought AMD yesterday, was stopped out of it, decided to stay out of it today just because this tells me it needs more time. Obviously, AMD, for example, is 123% up from the bottom. This is 2 weeks of consolidation. I really do think it needs more time, and especially with indexes like SPY and QQQ that obviously are having some difficulty here, it doesn't surprise me that some of these large movers need to cool off a little bit. Once again, I don't think they're done. NVIDIA had a very good day today. It opened underneath the 10, reclaimed somewhere in the middle of the range. Not the best close, but I mean, you can see it picked up, dropped down, and then just kind of held its way out. I think this name and this theme in general need more time to consolidate. But very strong theme coming out of the big drawdown from March with all the tariff stuff. Obviously, this was not a fun time to be trading, and some of this period recently hasn't been either. But my goal with this video, and I guess the thought or idea or whatever you want to call it that I'm displaying here, is not to make the same mistake again. Of not kind of maximizing something like Newegg, where once again, looking back on this, it's easy to look at a stock that's up 3,500% and go, well, shit, I should have put more money in that. Yeah, I'm not anything special. I'm not a good trader for saying that. That's pretty common sense. What really defines someone who is good at this and someone who can say something like that with meaning is, are you going to do it again? If you see an opportunity like that, are you going to take it or are you going to not? Um, and that's kind of the premise of this video. Semiconductors, once again, got a little off track, but large pull down, large setup here. If you can see, Newegg started its move once again somewhere in June. SOXL here now in May and June. Kind of goes into this consolidation after the big move up, cools off, breaks out again, cools off, breaks out again, cools off, breaks out. Now it's in this pretty large base. Looks like it is breaking out again, but I'm not as sure, and once again, could be wrong, not as sure this move here is going to have as much follow through. I think it's more realistic this kind of pulls back a little bit, goes sideways for a little bit longer, and then tries it again with some more conviction. But thinking about Newegg and trying to figure out why this thing did what it did, my best guess is, it's not a semiconductor manufacturer. It's not NVIDIA. It's not AMD. It's not any of these other names. But they sell computer parts, and that's a pretty, once again, could be a reach. It's not, anything more than hindsight and trying to determine why it did what it did. But there's too many comparisons between what happened with Newegg and what I'm now seeing on Open to kind of, just push this idea aside and call it, hindsight or call it a reach. Um, we'll go off my thesis here that Newegg really did pick up the way it did as kind of a secondary beneficiary of the semiconductors breakout. Um, Obviously, once again, NVIDIA, AMD, very great names recently, just straight up. Newegg, once again, doesn't manufacture semiconductors, but they are going to be, as a company that sells computer parts and CPUs and that type of thing, a secondary beneficiary of the semiconductors breakout. And once again, that's kind of the same thing I'm seeing with Open here. So I'll move on from just yapping about semiconductors here and going over the same things. Um, it's on a legacy run. Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate way to put it. And my correlation to semis is that I think, if there is a correlation, not that there is one at all, but if my best guess to the correlation is it being that kind of secondary beneficiary from a semiconductor breakout, that them being a brokerage or however you want to refer to it as for semiconductors and computer parts, we're going to go off and play off that theme and kind of play with this idea a little bit more with Open and with the home builders. So home builders pivot and breakout, and my TC is a little bit laggy here, but home builders have been one of the strongest themes recently. I don't know if it's the strongest currently, but the first name I saw that kind of picked up out of this big downtrend and pivot was HOV. There's a couple other ones that I don't quite feel the need to go over, but I mean, the point is you can look at this and you can see it's going up. It's going up a lot. It's trading very cleanly here. You have an entry here if you wanted it. You have an entry here if you wanted it. This thing looks good. Now I'm looking for this to set up above the 200, flag out, pull back a little bit, My guess that IWM, while it did break out, may need some more time, although it did recover very nicely today. So we will see how this acts. But if you look at SPY or QQQ, these do look like they have the possibility of pulling back, going sideways for a few more days before continuing another leg up. Similarly, if you look back here where it kind of dropped down and hugged the 20 MA, this pullback is kind of what caught my eye and kind of sparked this idea. Is, you know, it's not the exact same thing, but you can see it's a decent move up out of consolidation, and then it's a pullback to the 20, and then it's a nice run here, it's a nice run here, and then another consolidation, pull back to the 20. It looks like a run up. My guess would be another consolidation before another move up. But the point of that being, when you compare this to SOXL, it moves pretty similarly. Obviously, it pulls back and catches the 20, consolidates around the same area, but this moved very well. Semiconductors moved very well with the markets. NVIDIA, AMD once again moved very well. Back to the home builders here. I'm imagining the same thing. Obviously, this is a very momentum heavy theme. It fluctuates with mortgage rates. It fluctuates with really everything, with banks, with really everything that shit does. And I don't sit here analyzing mortgage rates. I don't know shit about mortgage rates. I just know how to read a chart. And this chart tells me this thing is ready to do what it did here and just make another move up, or do what it did here, or do what it did here. It's flipped around and the cycle is back to bullish. That being said, once again, I'd like this to set up over the 200 flag, consolidate a little bit longer while SPY, QQQ, IWM, all the big indexes really do catch and lean into momentum. Hopefully no more tariff news. We do have rate cuts eventually. We'll see how that goes. I think PPI was yesterday, and it wasn't, or maybe it was today. Honestly, it's the 14th. I don't quite remember. But most of the stocks I was in, as far as that goes, didn't look like they were doing well, and then happened to do well later in the day. I do think market is very strong right now. I do think there's themes better than home builders currently, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to go over Open. And obviously Open is not a home builder. They aren't like HOV, they aren't like any of the other stocks. They don't build homes. They're more of a brokerage for homes. Similarly, and this is where my brain is throwing all this shit together, reaching potentially. Um, Similarly to Newegg being a brokerage for semiconductors, it's a secondary beneficiary of the home builders. It's made this massive run up here. This is already a ridiculous move. This is almost 1,000% in less than a month. And once again, maybe if you were God, I'm not. If you were God, you could catch this. I'm not trading this. Same way I didn't trade that shit on Newegg before it was over the 200. Easy to look back and spot an entry, but you aren't a good trader by back testing and saying I would have bought here. You're a good trader by doing it the next time you see it. And with Open, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, similarly to semiconductors with Newegg, I'm seeing a large move down, pull up out of this big drop, a consolidation, and then this run out of semiconductors. And this is where I think we're at with home builders. You see this big drawdown. It's starting to pivot now. It's obviously flipped. It's obviously reversed. And now I'm looking for a really strong breakout. Not that this hasn't been strong, but I'm looking for a full breakout, something like this. These really big moves. This is what I'm looking for. I don't want to be catching this stuff and this stuff. I want something like that. I want something like that. I want that verticality. And I really do think that home builders is likely going to set up and provide that in the near future. Um, Open is not maybe the strongest home builder, real estate, whatever you want to call it, stock. Um, the same way that Newegg was not the strongest semiconductor, not the strongest tech stock, but this is just ridiculous, and I'm not trying to miss a move like this again. My thesis with Open is pretty similar. I think it's going to do the same thing, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I lose a couple percent of my account trying to trade this, but I'm 2 for 2 so far on entries, and once again, could reverse, but I'm completely fine with that risk. And I don't know it's going to go up. I'm not sure it's going to go up. I honestly don't know. I don't know if it's going to go up. It could just suck. All I know is it looks really strong. Pretty ridiculous move up. Comes down here, starts to down channel, catches moving averages for support, and you can see right around here it kind of bottomed out. It tapped a couple times on here, has this little trend line here. It failed earnings, broke this support level here, recovered back up, closed above it, tested again here, and now you have a couple higher lows, and now it takes out previous day's high, breaks this trend line, and this was my first entry on a 1/4% risk, and now I took my second entry on another 1/4% risk today. Once again, a little bit of a move up here, starts to pull back, opens right around all the moving averages, is strong, makes it out, and now it's up here. I think I'm like 261 fill on this, and I don't even remember what my fill is here. 204, 205 maybe. Um, I'm going to go back on the Newegg chart here to show you what I kind of saw while trading this. It's a very similar setup. You have this large move up. It's not a clean flag. It's not, doesn't look like that, but it's a very clear top half of the flag, and it's at the 200. It's at everything is just all the moving averages are just sitting here. Um, it very clearly has the resistance on top, and then there's not a possible way it could be without support with it sitting on the 200, sitting on the 10, sitting on the 20. Every time it touches here, and once again, here was my Newegg entry, and I didn't miss this the same way I didn't miss open. I bought open today and I bought it over here on Monday. But what I am avoiding is 0.25 here, 0.25 here, 0.25 here. At this point, I'm going higher risk. It'll be 1 to 2% of my account, which is over risking. But I think it's worth it. And if I get stopped out and I'm wrong, that's part of the game, and I suck it up and I move on. But if I'm right, this would be pretty generational. So you saw the Newegg setup here. This looks very similar. We went over the fact that markets are kind of in the same conditions as they were when Newegg first broke out. It was a move out of this consolidation, drop back down to the 20, and then went on this run up, drop back again, went on this run up. Move out of this consolidation, drop back to the 20, run up, and then once again, I think we're due for another short-term consolidation here, and then a really good run here. This was a pretty unbelievable month for me. I made a lot of money this month. This most recent month, not as lucky. But June or July, start of July to end of July maybe, it was like 30% of my account. Um, and I really do think I could do more than that if Open acts the same way that Newegg acts, and I choose to take advantage of it this time. So from Open, if you just zoom out on these charts, you can kind of see the same thing. They look very similar. Um, the other thing I noticed is that Open has a 1.8 billion market cap, Newegg has a 1.8 billion market cap, Newegg has a 25.5 ADR, and Open has a 24.5 ADR. These are both starting to heat up here. Open heating up with the home builders sector as a secondary beneficiary, and Newegg heating up with the semiconductors breakout and run up as kind of another secondary beneficiary. So the point is here, once again, this isn't free money. This isn't guaranteed. Um, but if a year from now I look at this chart and Open looks like this now, and in 8 months or 4 months or however long it takes, Open looks like this, and I sit there and I go, why didn't I risk the correct amount of risk? Why didn't I trade this with conviction? You aren't going to make money sitting and second guessing yourself and not trusting yourself. I'm a firm believer that the best way to get better is to trust your gut. And when you're wrong, why are you wrong? But you aren't going to know you're wrong until you try it and you fail. You can sit here forward testing all you want, and you can sit here back testing all you want, but the reality is, if you want to do this as a living and you want to be the caliber of trader that I'm working towards being, you enter trades. You can't sit here and we're not philosophers. I think Open's going to go up. If I think it's going to go up, I'm trading it. And there's no glory in looking at this 6 months from now and saying, I predicted Open was going to do 800% like Newegg. I made all these connections. I made all this shit. And someone goes, okay, show me the brokerage statement saying you traded Open and bought it in the low twos. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't. That's a load of shit. Um, I'm buying it because I trust myself and I think I know what I'm talking about. And worst case scenario, I don't, and I learn. And the next time I approach it differently and I perform better. But once again, this doesn't look like something that's possible. The same way Open doing 4,000% doesn't look like something that's possible. But with all the shit in the market right now, and once again, home builders looking like they're setting up for another really solid leg up, I think it's something worth trading. The other thing worth mentioning is that mortgage rate shit. I think it was like a 1/4% decrease rate cuts. I honestly don't look at news. You see it all here. Um, that's not that's not really relevant. I don't know why people think that a 1/4% is something worth looking at. I think most people are just fucking stupid, to be completely honest with you. And maybe someone who's been sitting at their desk, or a John and Susie Smith or whatever the fuck, they're looking at it, they see the 1/4%, they're like, oh, time to buy my home. I don't really know. I don't really care either. All I know is that this shit is going up, and that when you have it here and it makes the move up, it needs to set up over the 200, and then it needs to make another move up. So once again, I'm not sure open is just going to go out the door. Obviously today looked very good. I was very happy with my performance today on open. I'm glad I bought this where I did. I'm glad I trusted myself to buy this where I did. I don't think this is going to do this. I think similarly to Newegg, I think it will do a little move and then set up again, little move and then set up again. The difference is this time around, when open makes this run up and pulls back, and now the 50's caught up and the MAs are all in order, and it starts to consolidate here, I'm not going, well, open's a piece of shit, I'm going to do a quarter. I'm YOLOing it, and I'm adequately risking on this, because I was proven wrong by NEGG, unfortunately, in the fact that every single time this started to break out, I was like, okay, 1%, half a percent, 1/4%, this thing like can't possibly go higher. But I'm now looking back at this and kicking myself for not trading this and grabbing the bull by its horns, and making generational wealth off of this. Um, However, it seems that, well, I am not God. There is a God out there, I would imagine. I'm not very religious, but it wouldn't surprise me. Someone seems to have given me a second chance. So we're going to see how this performs. I'm looking to continually add to this. I'm going to be very actively managing this position. I have my entry here at break even. I will have my entry here at break even soon after. My goal on this position, or I guess multiple positions that this will end up being, I want to get as much of my account into this safely. I don't want to be breaking rules, taking a 5% risk position. I'm not really DCAing into it, just because I think that term is for people who don't know what they're doing. I'm just taking small entries. I have two starters now where I'm up to 0.5% of my account in risk. I probably have less than 10, or less than 15 for sure percent of my account into this. My goal is to get that closer to 20 at the minimum, see how this performs, potentially add more than 20% of my account in. Once again, there's a very real possibility that it doesn't do this, and it takes a shit. So I'm not trying to push my limits on what's safely tradable here. But once again, I'm just not blowing the opportunity that appears to have been given to me again. I think that was everything I had to cover. I went over chart similarities. I went over the recent momentum that Open has and its correlation to home builders. We went over home builders pivot and breakout. We went over all of this shit. And most importantly, I'm not God. I don't, see a vision. I'm not a prophet. I have no clue what this fucking thing is going to do. I'm not sitting here telling someone who watches this to trade this. I'm not telling you to put your dad's retirement account or your college savings into this. I'm telling you, treat it like a normal stock rather than a weak stock. Instead of looking at this like something, maybe I'll throw a little bit in there. Trade this like it's strong, because it is strong. This is a very impressive recovery out of the bottom. It holds this base very well. It recovers very well after the dip. It's trading very well. I'm 2 for 2 on entries on this. I haven't been stopped out yet. And that's traditionally a good sign. When I look at something like not sure how many times I've been stopped out of this now, but I didn't buy it today. I bought it yesterday, and I bought it here too. So at least 2 times. This shit really pisses me off. Or maybe MP is another one I've been tried. Bought this today is 2 at previous day high break. I bought this on earnings. Man, I don't really quite remember. The point is, this shit really pisses me off when it stops me out, and Open just hasn't done that. It's 2 for 2, and that gives me conviction that as it continues to set up and gives me entries, whether it's bounces off the 10, whether it's whatever you want it, whether it's a flag out of a consult, whatever you want to give it name-wise. If I see an entry on this shit, I'm taking it without thinking twice. And that's my only advice, or my only point of making this video is don't regret it. Don't regret it. You can always make a little bit of your account back. The very least, you trade this too aggressively, stay within your rules, suffer a couple percentage drawdown for handling it this way. And at the very best, you go from sitting in your dorm room to sitting on a yacht, maybe. I don't know. If you put a decent amount of your account in this starting here, going off this fucking prophecy I have, I suppose, that it's going to replicate what NEGG did. This is a 1,300%, well, maybe not that quite that high. It's 1,000% move. I mean, the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm probably going to be trailing this a little bit more. I haven't quite thought about it. I still need to see how it acts and how it trades. Um, but I've been considering just trading this, trailing it with the 20 instead of the 10 simple moving average. But I'm just making shit up at this point, to be completely honest. We'll see how it acts. I really do think this looks good though, and I think that should be the end of the video for now.